Star Wars: The Adventures of Serian Kall. Shadow of Terror. The following Star Wars story you're about to hear is non-canon to the mainline saga. It is an entirely audio-based book series following an original character named Serian Kall. This story takes place 2 years after the events of Book 1, The First Steps, and takes place concurrently with the events of Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Tensions continue to rise across the galaxy. In the wake of Count Dooku's declaration to secede from the Galactic Republic, countless star systems have followed in his wake, prompting whispers of the outbreak of a galaxy-wide civil war. Following his victory on the planet of Utapau, and stopping the terror of the fallen Jedi Rele Narales, young Serian Kall works tirelessly under the tutelage of his master Jallius Serian to complete his Jedi trials, in the hopes of one day becoming a great Jedi Knight. In the wake of the rising conflicts, Serian must navigate his way forward. All the while, sinister forces lurk in the shadows, plotting to seize what power is left and unleash terror across the stars. Chapter 1. Dr. Nek Vryn was growing frustrated. Of course, such was merely part of the struggle that came with his line of work, a necessary sacrifice of his own fruition. So few within the galaxy failed to comprehend the gravitas of his studies. Hardly few contained the capacity for intellect necessary for such practice. But of course, Dr. Vryn had to remind himself of the simple truth of the matter, that he was superior to most mortal fools that plague this galaxy. He had reached perfection. At his workbench, he scavenged through his tools before claiming a spare syringe and bringing it over to the severed arm of a Trandoshan lying before him, its scales cracked and battered, flesh peeling and rot, and chipped remnants of bone still remaining, handled so carelessly upon delivery. He injected the needle through the scaly flesh, drawing blood into the syringe so watered down and degraded it appeared withered. Vryn scoffed. His specimen was aged and deteriorating. The cost of having such impetuous mercenaries collect his precious samples. Signaling his personal analysis droid over, Vryn handed it the syringe, which the droid took hold of within its clawed metal hand.
Run a diagnostic on this blood sample and test the regenerative properties of this specimen,
he commanded. The droid nodded before opening a compartment within its chassis and inserting the syringe inside, its eyes glowing as its processor started to work with the sample. As Vryn returned back to his workbench, he found himself suddenly interrupted by the loud screech of his laboratory's blast doors opening, and the incoming assault of babbling chatter that came shuffling into the chamber from a young red-skinned hybrid girl, wearing a simplistic black dress. "Father, you have an incoming transmission from your client." Vryn grumbled quietly to himself, bleeding his disdain for such clients to himself. Despite how little he thought of them, their simple-minded nature so beneath his own, the fact of the matter was that it was an entire galaxy of simple-minded fools compared to him, and they were the ones with the credits and the resources to make his experiments possible.
Put him through.
The droid nodded before placing down a small hollow communicator onto the doctor's workbench. A fuzzy blue image then appeared of a long-headed Mune, wearing a simplistic black robe tied together with a leather belt, his stance tall and poised.
For such an urgent call, I was expecting your master to strike up the courage to speak to me himself.
My master has more important matters to attend to,
the Mune responded, a note of grimace in his voice. Vryn nodded sarcastically.
I'm sure he does.
We have a new subject for your experiments.
If this subject is another abominable withering shell, then you can forget it.
Vryn scowled, throwing his hands up in a moment of untempered frustration. The Mun chuckled in response, regurgitating a scowl back from Vryn.
Rest assured, Doctor, we have brought you something far more than worth your while.
And what would that be?
A Jedi.
Vryn's eyes shot blank for just a pause. His mind wavered on just how such clumsy fools would have even managed to catch a Jedi, or if they had one in the first place. And this was just another desperate attempt to keep him in business.
All of your M-count data and experiments can finally be completed.
The proposition was tempting. Experimenting on such cellular molecules had been a dream project he had long sought to conquer. To understand such a mystical entity as the Force brought him one step closer to conquering all and claiming his superiority. He had already tried once before, a failed scheme to transfer blood between his so-called children, including the small girl who had now delivered him this message. And he had since given up on his attempts. Perhaps until now.
Show me.
In return, we expect something from you. We give you Jedi. You give us some results on your project. My master will be expecting a successful outcome by the end of the week.
A week? Such advanced studies take far more time than what you provide.
A man of your talents should have things settled by then. Unless, of course, you are not all that you claim to be.
I will have your master's experiment ready. Show me my Jedi.
Sandhill nodded, motioning to his right as two more mercenaries dragged over a cuffed Jedi who struggled and fought against her restraints.
And who may I have the pleasure of meeting today?
Vryn asked, nodding towards the Jedi. She was rather young, hardly even into her adult years, and perhaps around 5.5 feet in height. She stared directly toward the doctor, before releasing a venomous spit.
We did some record analysis after we captured her. Her name is Kaza Circe.
Well, Miss Cersei, I look forward to meeting you face to face, so that we may at last begin the great experiments.
Dr. Vryn gleamed. Kaisa scoffed and restrained against her captors, until they punched her in the stomach violently, beginning to drag her away from the message.
I warn you now, Doctor. Taking me hostage will be the last mistake you ever make.
Climb faster. Maintain your strength. Upon the frigid terrestrial world of Kainab, Serian Kall was hard at work, completing his Jedi trials. For the past 2 years, he and his master, Serian, had gone out into the galaxy for Serian to face each of the trials and complete them. The trials had been excruciating and difficult to say at the very least, especially with just how far Master Serian went to push his apprentice to his limits. This particular trial had just quite beaten all the rest. Master Serian had instructed Serian to climb to the top of Mount Shinsho with nothing but his bare hands, the Force, and the clothes and lightsabers he wore. All the while, multiple training remotes hovered around him in surprise ambush, firing at him and forcing him to defend. Out of breath and shivering beyond physical control, Serian forced himself to stop, hanging onto the sharp, jagged edge of the rock with one hand. His muscles ached and were numb beyond belief. His head was swarmed by a burning sensation of exhaustion and overload. In a dragging instant, Serian's senses caught onto 3 incoming targets, the corner of his eye presenting the last 3 training remotes sent after him. Releasing an audible groan of frustration, Serian unhooked his lightsaber with his free hand, igniting the blade and holding it close to his chest. He could see Master Serian's shadow at the peak of the mountain. He was so close, and yet so far as well. The training droids whizzed around Serian, angling their sensors and preparing their shots. In a quick flash came the first bolt, firing directly at Serian's chest, and knocked aside against a chisel of stone. Another targeted his leg, forcing Serian to sweep his blade down low to intercept the stinger bolt, dropping his weight lower and straining his grip on the stone ledge. His remotes staggered before re-angling themselves in a new attack position. Serian gripped against the stone tighter, angling his legs to push against the rock surface, walking himself upwards. He tried quieting his mind, an attempt to sense the incoming bolts. But between the searing pain and exhaustion he felt, as well as the focus of not falling to his death, kept him from truly concentrating on the Force. Such was not an excuse, he told himself. He was so close to becoming a Jedi Knight now. There was no room for failure on his part anymore. Regardless of whatever insecure emotions came his way and what he had trained himself to overcome. If he was truly to become a Jedi, then he needed to be the best possible one he could be. Everything he had to do must have been perfect. He needed to be perfect. A sudden flash then caught Serian by surprise, a laser blast from one of the remotes shooting faster than he anticipated. The taser sting slipped through his guard, striking against his arm, staggering it, and causing him to lose his grip from the ledge as he began to fall. Thinking quickly, Serian thrust his saber into the stone wall, adjusting the blade modulator on his hilt. He quickly turned the power to training mode, lowering the cutting power of his weapon and halting his fall. Taking just a breath to reclaim himself, Serian then channeled what little remaining energy he had left, jumping upwards enhanced by the power of the Force, quickly switching back the settings of his blade back and forth. He cut into the rock once more, before setting back to training mode, pulling himself upwards from his hilt until he reached the jagged ledge once more. With a heave, Serian pulled himself up onto the ledge fully, standing upon it with both feet tightly clenched together, and resetting his saber back to its normal setting, gripping it with both hands in a defensive position as the training remotes prepared for attack once more. Serian now had to play his defenses tactically and efficiently. Even while fully standing, his mobility was extremely limited, impossible for him to perform any extra acrobatics or even flourishes of his blade if he wanted to maintain balance. Anticipating, he gave himself a moment of focus, allowing the remotes to make the first move and act accordingly. The first remote fired as Serian deflected the bolt, directly back with a precise shunt block, sending the bolt straight back into the remote and causing it to fall. The other two remotes fired simultaneously, Serian deflecting both harmlessly aside, though nearly at the cost of losing all his balance. Taking a moment to re-establish his grip on the ledge, channeling the Force to maintain balance, Serian rose once more, nodding his head towards the remotes, signaling a challenging nod. The remotes paused for reanalysis, and Serian took initiative of the moment, angling his blade before throwing it outwards towards one of the remotes, guided by the Force. The saber cut through one of the remotes, slashing it in half as the other bolt directed at Serian's chest. The young Jedi, in a quick flash, hopped off the ledge, gripping it with both hands as he hung for dear life, calling his saber back to him. The blade angled towards the remote and carving straight through it in flight. Serian leapt up, grabbing his lightsaber in one hand before thrusting it into the wall once more and pulling himself upwards, continuing his climb upwards to the top. Once atop the mountain, Serian practically collapsed into a heap, shivering as he tucked into a ball as a means of keeping warm. Jallius then walked up to him, helping him off the ground as he handed him a warm blanket, which Serian hastily wrapped around himself.
"You did well, Serian,"
Jallius said, a warm smile forming upon his face, a smile which warmed Serian's heart faster than his body. Extending his hand outward, Jallius motioned his hand as the training droids all began to hover up to the top of the mountain, before fleeting to the Jedi Master's grip and deactivating. Jallius kept the remotes levitating in the air as they tailed behind him.
Come now. Let's head back to the camp. You've done more than enough for today.
Couldn't agree more, Master. Serian chattered, still shivering as he followed his master over back to an old, worn-down building that seemed to have lasted there for decades at the very least. Inside the building was a rather weathered yet still possessed some strange sense of a mellow home. Jallius dropped the droids inside a wooden basket before approaching an old fireplace built into the side of the cabin, snapping his fingers as a spark of flame ignited upon the small logs of wood currently inside as they began to engulf. Serian huddled his way over to an old lounge chair placed in front of the fire, caving into the seat as he leaned closer to the fire to gain warmth. Jallius removed his robe, placing it on a rack before taking a seat in a second lounge chair across from his apprentice. The two remained quiet for a short pause, allowing the calming aura of silence to take in solace.
Your climbing speed increased by 2 minutes, as did your stamina. Your balance on the ledge left something to be desired.
Serian lowered his head slightly, feeling the weight of critique bear down upon him. That was until Jallius gave his follow-up notes.
Then again, it just means we have something more to work on.
Jallius smiled at his apprentice, who returned the gesture and rose to meet his gaze.
Don't feel disheartened, Serian. These last 2 years you have made exceptional progress in your training, and that is something to be rewarded. You must understand that I am only so critical as to make sure you're successful.
I understand, Master. Truly, I do.
My notes are not intended cruelly, but what if I calculate to be true is bound to happen? Then they may very well be the notes that are what keep you alive.
Both Jedi fell into silence, as words rung true. To say that the galaxy had fallen into a difficult period of late would be the understatement of a millennia. Ever since the political schemes and disasters unfolded on Utapau 2 years ago, the galaxy as a whole had seemed to fall into a subsequent decline of political warfare on all corners of the galaxy, and the Jedi had been scattered throughout every crevice. Even worse had been the revelation of the former Jedi Master Dooku's leadership of the Separatist movement, targeted against the Republic, and the whispers of civil war that now echoed through all corners of space. Speculation had turned to paranoia, rumors transformed into threats. Serian himself didn't know what to make of it all himself. He had heard so many different things at this point that he didn't know what to think or do. All he could do was wait and see for what was about to happen. Do you really think the galaxy is going to go to war?
I'm not sure,
Jallius admitted, releasing a heavy sigh as he did.
The Republic is not what it was back when I was your age. Certainly it was equally complicated and overexuberant, but back then, they had managed to keep a proper sense of order over things. Now, debacle and infighting have left them passive and, dare I say, incompetent to resolve this growing crisis.
Serian remained silent as Jallius recomposed himself.
Forgive me on my political outbursts. It just gets all the more relevant these days.
I understand, Master. It's all right, Serian responded, lowering his head. If he was being honest with himself, he didn't really know what to think of everything that was happening. He dreaded the idea of fighting a war. The idea of so much death and destruction on such a scale was mortifying. Even worse was the idea of losing his master, or Kaiza. With them gone, what would he be to do? He forced himself to abolish such anxieties in his own head. A true Jedi Knight would not have been bogged down by such fears. He himself had made the effort to overcome that weakness before. He could not let that be in vain. Serian forewent his internal struggle as he looked back up at his master, who now gave his apprentice a warm smile, one that seemed to linger for several long moments, 1,000 thoughts all colliding together at once. Serian noticed his master's expression, one that seemed to fluctuate between varying emotions of joy and sorrow. "Are you okay?"
I am. It's just a bittersweet thing to see your knighting so close to completion. I am, of course, boundlessly proud of you for all of your hard work and your training. I know you will make a great Jedi Knight. Even so, seeing you all grown up doesn't stop me remembering you as that sweet little boy I met so many years ago, who used to sit and wonder when I would tell old Jedi fables, who would ask an essay of questions a day until I could no longer handle it, who would get scared and duck to the floor whenever I piloted one of our ships.
"You used to fly so absurdly fast, Master, practically at hyperspeeds. Remember the time we went into that asteroid field chasing the bounty hunter in the Onderon system? That ship ended up getting scrapped after we got back."
But we got him, didn't we?
Jallius chuckled, and Serian laughed in response. "Yeah, I guess we did." The two shared a tender moment for a pause, before Jallius spoke up once more, this time his voice somber and fueled by regret.
I guess I never thought I'd get to see one of my Padawans all grown up. Not after.
"R'lyeh?" Serian finished. His attempt to continue questioning was brought to a sudden halt by seeing his master's expression. Jallius remained silent as he scowled, aggressively shaking his head to dispel the conversation from continuing. After a pause of silence, which then insinuated, the sound of a comlink beeping echoed throughout the hut. Jallius pulled his comlink off his belt and examined the flashing lights which rhymed with the beeps.
It's a summoning message from the High Council. Shouldn't they know we're out here taking your trials?
"And that probably means it's urgent." Jallius nodded as he deactivated his comlink and got up from his seat.
Gather your things. We leave for Coruscant in the hour.
Serian nodded as he got up out of his seat and prepared to return to the ship for their return home.